Yeah. You don't get the goodbye. You packed up my life like evidence, stacked it by the door. Said I broke the only rule we had, so there's nothing to discuss anymore. I stood there watching 15 years get ended in one breath. No questions, no real conversation, just a kiss and nothing left. You said I was your only one, your home, your heaven, your air. Then you walked me to my car like I was never even there. And maybe you cheated, maybe you lied, maybe you just needed me gone. But the truth came down like a verdict, and you called it moving on. You don't get the goodbye, you don't get to rewrite, you don't get to show up broken and ask me to make it right. You don't get my front porch, my healing, or my tears. You don't get to borrow my peace after all these silent years. You don't get to call me home when you chose another life. You had me once, you let me die. Baby, you don't get the goodbye. You were a lawyer with a final rule, a loophole in your hand. You named yourself the guilty one and never let me understand. No questions, no confession, no real reason on the floor. Just I violated what we said, and you shadowed through the door. Then you said I didn't need you, like words could make it true. Guess a man could stab his own heart when he's afraid of what love might prove. You didn't end us like love was gone, you ended us like fear had won. You couldn't live with being known, so you turned away and called it done. You don't get the goodbye, you don't get to rewrite, you don't get to show up broken and ask me to make it right. You don't get my front porch, my healing, or my tears. You don't get to borrow my peace after all these silent years. You don't get to call me home when you chose another life. You had me once, you let me die. Baby, you don't get the goodbye. You came back through a side door, like old memories often do. Asked for dinner, warmed the ashes, then kept the whole truth out of you. 4 months of almost maybe, 4 months of old flame smoke. You only said that you were married when I said I might come close. Then blamed one bitter email for the vows you chose to make. But one sarcastic sentence doesn't undo the life we made. I was the girl you kissed like fire, the one you said you'd never replace. I was your breath, your secret church, the truth you couldn't face. You chose the life that felt most certain, chose the silence over light, chose the distance you could live with, over standing in the truth at night. Now time keeps moving, distance calling, and every choice becomes its name. But don't come looking for forgiveness, just to quiet what remains. Oh, I am not your last confession, I am not your final prayer. I am not the place you return to, just because I once was there. You don't get to say remember when I never got the truth. You don't get to bring me flowers for the choices of our youth. You don't get to call it closure when it's comfort that you need. You don't get to ask for mercy from the woman you made bleed. You don't get the goodbye. You don't get the goodbye. You don't get to rewrite. You don't get to rewrite. You don't get to leave my world and ask to step back inside. You don't get the ending that brave hearts have to earn. You don't get to walk away and ask me to return. You don't get my body shaking, my door, my bed, my sky. You had me once, you let me die, and thank you. Now I know why I had to lose who I was back then to become the woman who learned to fly. Baby, you still don't get the goodbye. We lost the love that once was home. We lost the life we couldn't keep. I hope you find the truth you need while I finally learn to sleep. I loved you once.